This is my second patent since I've started this channel. So I'm going to have all kinds of patents coming up here soon. So this video, I am doing something that I really enjoy doing. I've never done it on camera. Keep your mind out of the gutter, nothing to do with that. But one of my favorite things to do in the shop is to invent and create solutions. So yesterday, I did a project on my, as of now, it's called the R3, Radical Radial Router. So far, that's what it's called. Thank you, Sue. Appreciate that. So yesterday, I was doing a video on the functions of my R3 and made a square bowl. And I utilized a clamping system that I'd thought of actually just that day, kind of spur of the moment. I thought about it. So I created this. So I've always been trying to find the ideal way to clamp down something flat to specifically this tabletop, because this is where I have that desire or that need more than anywhere else in my shop. And this is my overhead router, horizontal sliding tabletop. So usually what I'll do is I'll double tape the material to this top, which works for the most part. However, if I've got a really rough piece of wood, like I was using yesterday, originally I was going to do a project with reclaimed old barn wood. That's not a surface that I could double tape to this surface. So double tape wasn't going to work. And clamps wouldn't work either for a few reasons, one of which I don't have clamps that can get in that far to clamp this down. And I wanted to clamp it below the planing surface or below the routing surface, or something that came up to here. So what I came up with on the spur of the moment was a system where, I'll bring this up close, make sure you guys can see so it's not blurry. So I created, I don't know what to call it, the bear trap. Let's call it the bear trap clamping system. And the concept is I've got these bolts. I cut the heads off, sharpened the tips, and screwed them into this piece of wood. And my thought process was I could just slightly indent those into the wood and clamp this down to the tabletop. Now the caveat with this system is it is going to create little dimple marks. So I understand that this system will not work for every application. However, for every situation I can possibly think of, this applies to me. I usually put the piece in bigger than I need it to be, so I'm cutting it down afterwards. So I don't really care if there's dimples in the end. If there's a piece that I can't do that to, then that means it's finished enough or in a state where I can probably double-sided tape it down to this. So I'll still utilize that system for certain things, but I think this is going to be my go-to system for clamping down products on my horizontal sliding router table system thingy. So, tried it yesterday. It worked really well. I was quite impressed with it. So, of course, like I do every night when I go to bed, is I lay awake for hours thinking of random shit. No, actually, brilliant thoughts, I meant to say. I go to bed and my mind just, it never stops, but I'm always thinking of ideas or solutions. Now, I'm not going to claim that I've invented this and I'm the only one that's ever tried this or thought of this, even though my ego wants me to think so. I'm not taking credit for it. However, I've never seen any system like this on the internet or anywhere else. I've never heard of it. So as far as I'm concerned, in my little world, I came up with the method. So just give me that, okay? So last night I was laying awake thinking, okay, so that worked. However, there are some downfalls to it. And how could I improve it? So after a couple of hours of laying awake thinking, I'm pretty sure I've come up with a solution that's going to be what I utilize to clamp down things on my overhead router sliding horizontal table tool. Say that 3 times quick. Say it once slowly. I the only one that laughs at their own jokes? Because I do a lot. In fact, I find myself pretty funny a lot of the times. Granted, oftentimes I think I'm being laughed at as opposed to laughed with, but as long as we're laughing, I don't really care. I got thick skin. Where was I? Squirrel. So anyway, so I've got that system in my head, and I'm going to bring you guys along with me in the journey of creating it from scratch. And that's one thing I've never done on camera before. I've never videotaped my process of coming up with something. I wished I'd videotaped the making of this fabulous creation, but I didn't, so start small. So we're going to call it the bear trap clamping system. Patent pending. This is my second patent since I've started this channel. So I'm going to have all kinds of patents coming up here soon, but this is my second one. So rather than explaining it all to you right now, what I'm going to do is just bring you guys along for the build. And like usual, I'll be talking to myself so you'll know what's in my head as I'm thinking through things, because I'm sure there will be things that I change or redesign. But I consider this as, what do you call those things? Not a template. When you first try, no, there's a word for it. It's a model of something that you're creating. Oh, come on, dude. Not a template, not a trial, not a model, not a, shit, I can't think of the word. There's a word for it. I'm sure someone out there knows. I'm stuck on this. I gotta get it. It's gonna drive me fucking crazy. Prototype. Oh, God, thank you. Thank you, Lord. Prototype. So this is my first prototype. And today I'm building my second prototype, which may end up becoming the finished product. I don't know. We'll just see how it goes. But some of the thoughts that I had on the changes, I guess I'll tell you that much anyway. So the downfall with this prototype, I should write it on here so I don't forget. So, okay, so the problem I had with prototype 1 is if I have a narrow piece like this, then this isn't wide enough to get a clamp in here, right? So I've got a solution for that. So the other thing is I didn't get these so that they're protruding the same distance on each one. And that would be advantageous to help getting it squared, so I can align the clamp square with everything. So I think it's important that the distance from there to there and there to there is exactly the same. So I want a way that I can adjust these in and out, so I can balance them or bring them out further if I want, or in more if I want. And the other thing is I didn't want so much sticking out. Although this is great for a bear trap, as far as the clamping system goes, it's not required, it's not necessary. And in fact, I want to actually limit how much that's going to penetrate into the piece of wood, because I only want it to go in just enough to hold the piece down, which I suspect is going to be less than 1/8. I don't know what the exact number is, but so I've got an idea on how I can do that. So we'll be able to have an adjustable system that can still be clamped down to here. It'll be adjustable this way. These will be adjustable so I can bring them in or out and keep them exact. And the other thing that I thought of is, in addition to these pricks, I'm going to put some sandpaper, peel and stick sandpaper. I've got some of that, so I'm going to put a strip of that on here as well, just to give it a bit more holding power. So I think that tells the story. So let's begin our journey together on this adventure. And either we're going to get rich and famous and have a new patented clamping system that's never been thought of in the entire world until yesterday, or it's going to be a flop and I've just made a video and spent a bunch of time for nothing. Actually, even if it is a flop, I'll probably post the video, because this is more of a reality show to me than a tutorial. So either way, I'll post it. If you have constructive criticism, positive or negative, please leave it in the comments. If you can think of anything else that we could do, and I say we because we can partner on this now. If you think of anything that would improve this bear trap clamp system, leave a comment, and I will definitely include you on the patent application. You'll be credited as one of the designers on it, so could be all kinds of fame and fortune just for leaving a comment. So leave comments, appreciate it. Okay, let's get into it. So to figure out how wide each side needs to be, I want to be able to grasp something that's, maybe narrow, 2 inches or wider. So that means that from the center, I need to be 9 inches, because this whole thing is 20.5 inches. So 9 inches will get me pretty much the whole surface of this table, which is all I really care about. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn this into 2 9-inch pieces. Now, one of the things that I need to consider is how wide do I make it this way? And I think the wider the better, especially if I'm going to have sandpaper on it. I'll keep the pins kind of towards the middle in case I have a smaller piece on here, but I'm inclined to go the full width. Yeah, 9 inches wide is going to be what we are. Okay, so let's just rip these on the table saw. Get my cameraman working here. Here we go. 9 inches. 9, 9, 9, 9, 9. Now, if I had a really narrow piece to clamp in, I can just clamp these down and I'm good to go. But if I had a wider piece, then suddenly my clamps may not be deep enough, okay? So the solution for that is we're gonna build a slot in each side. Right now I'm just trying to think, okay, what clamps am I gonna wanna use for this? Am I gonna wanna use something like this or one of the quick release clamps? These are a lot stronger. They're gonna hold this down better. So I'm leaning towards the good old C clamp, because that's gonna depend on how wide I need to make my slot. So 10 inches means that 5 is the center, at least where I come from anyway. Don't know about you guys, but so that's our center. Now these clamps, the throat is 3/4. So I need a line that is 3/4 of an inch wide. What's half of 3/4, you ask? That would be 3/8, I would say. So if we go 3/8 on each side, 1, 2, 3 of them, by golly, that is 3/4. I was just guessing on the 3/8. I can be honest with you guys. Might as well do the same thing over here. So now what I need to cut that slot. So I'm going to start by drilling a hole here. Then I'll cut my slots. I've got all these workbenches and I'm working on this little 2 square foot surface. Ask me why? No idea. Just feels right for some strange reason. And now for the center this way, I'm going to guess I need 3/8, right? 1, 2, 3 of them. Okay, so that's where we're going to drill our hoe. Which drill are we going to use? We'll use the little one over there. No, we'll use this big one. What the hell? Go big or go home. That's what I always say. Out with the old, in with the new. We got holes. Okay, let's run over to the bandsaw. Oh, I promised you would play, didn't I? Where is it? Oh, there it is. Okay, can I have it? Can I have it? Oh, good girl. You ready? Oh, good girl. Such a good girl. Again. Oh, good girl. Okay, one more. How about one more and then I gotta go to work, okay? Thank you. You stay. You ready now? Oh, good girl. Okay, I need to make a video now, okay? Yes, I love you very, very much, but I need to make a video. You're so precious. But we got work to do. Over to the bandsaw we go. that's nasty. Good thing we don't care. This is cheap shit plywood these days. Okay, so that gets us that. Let's give this a quick sand so I don't get slivers in my sensitive little fingers. I gotta say, the amount of money that they charge for plywood these days and the quality of it is just so frustrating to me. Like, that's not even thick enough to be measured. It's about the thickness of a piece of paper. And that's your top veneer. That's the finished piece. Like that is, how pointless is that? I get so worked up. And I'd rather not even have this surface on here. Like, what's the point of it? Oh my God. Like, honestly, what is the point of having that? Paper. What, 80 bucks a sheet? I mean, come on. Ugh. I remember back in the day when I used to walk to school uphill both ways and it was 300 below and snowing and rain and all that shit. I remember back in the day when plywood, 3/4 inch plywood, could buy a sheet for 20 bucks. And I get the price is increased. I don't even care about that. But back then, a sheet of good one side or even S2S, like good two sides, quality plywood, it didn't matter whether it was construction grade or finishing grade, like a nice oak plywood or whatever, you know, even pine or spruce, good one side. The outside layer was 1/8 of an inch thick. So you could actually sand it. Imagine that, being able to sand plywood. God damn it. Ugh, don't get me started. And I know that there's plywoods out there that are better, and they're not all one is the same. However, on average, for the most part, see, I'd rather have wood. I'd rather have that surface, especially right now, than this shit, because that's all it is absolute garbage. Anyway, enough of my rant. Ow, see there, I got a sliver already. Bunch of garbage. Be great for starting a fire. Burn like paper. Oh wait, it is paper. Okay, now that I'm all worked up. So the next step, so that gets us our slot. Let me bring a clamp over here so I can give it a test drive. Of course. Of course. Bloody hell. Story of my life. So that's the concept. Okay, so we've already run into our first problem. My groove is too wide here because I don't want to have to clamp it at an angle like that. I want to be able to clamp it straight on like that. And I'm also going to do sandpaper on the bottom side so that it's not inclined to wiggle once we've got it positioned. So remind me that later. But I want this to be thinner. I think I'm going to use these clamps and not this clamp, because I was concerned that these might not give it enough of a grip. Yeah, I think with sandpaper on the bottom, we're going to be just fine. So let's scrap these and try that again. Let me go through my plywood collection. Just hang on. What are you? No, I don't like you either. Don't can take it personal. Just saying. This would probably work. Yeah, we'll go with this. So since my saw is still set up for the right width, we'll just make a couple of cuts. Okay, now we need to do our center line again. So I want my slot to be 1/4 inch wide. So let me try that again. Yeah, that's going to work better. Much better. Okay, we're getting somewhere. So that gets us that. Now we need to focus on little pricks, as I like to call them. Now for this, I need a piece of maple. How wide do I need my piece of maple? Probably an inch. That is perfect. Inch by an inch. 9 inches. Okay, now I need to rip these to the exact width of my plywood. I'm sure some of you have figured out where I'm going with this. I'm actually going to bring my drill press over here, I think. My little one. So here's what I'm thinking. If I screw these screws so that there's just a little bit leaving out, and I can unscrew it or screw it in to make this little prick come in or out. So imagine if these are embedded in there. Now that's going to leave me the rest of the screw. What the hell are we going to do with that, you're asking? What I'm thinking of doing is I'm going to drill bigger holes than the head of the screw in this surface that way, so the screws will actually be floating inside. Then I can just screw this piece into the front with 2 screws. So I can take those screws out if I want to take it off and readjust the length of the prick. Okay, makes sense? So that's what we're doing next. So first, what's the best way to do this? Okay, where do I want the screws to be? Where do I want the pricks? I think I want one around there and one around there. Now I can always add more, or if I want them spaced farther for whatever reason or closer, I can always do that after the fact, because I can just take this off and just put more screws in or change the location of the screws. So it's not really that critical on where they are right now. However, I do want them consistent, otherwise my palms will itch. Now, do I want them in the center, or do I want them down lower? Yeah, I'll never do anything thinner than 3/4, so I'm just going in the center. I used to have a center finder. Oh wait, I got a new one. Of course. So first I just want to pre-drill, so something like that's going to work. So when I screw these in, it's going to give me a mark on the plywood on each side, and that's where I need to drill the hole for the head of the screw. Make sense? So the only thing I'm doing here is just determining where I need to drill the holes into the plywood to bury the heads of the screws into. So I'm not going to drive these all the way home. So that gives me marks where I need to drill holes. Keep those 2 together. Do the same thing over on this side now. And we do the same thing. Now, to make sure that these are aligned properly, I need to put them in the other way. Because remember, they're going to go in backwards to the way we had them. Want them exactly aligned, and this is the best way to ensure that. I'm sure it would have been okay doing it, like leaving them the way that they were, but good enough isn't good enough for me. Let's give this a try. No idea what to expect here. That should work. That works. That works. Yeah, so I can bring these out as far as I want them to be for pricks. And I'm thinking like that. I'll bring this up closer to you guys so you can see what I'm thinking. So this is what I'm thinking. So not very much. Just enough to grab hold of the piece of wood. So if you hold this up against another surface, you can see the gap there, and it's pretty easy to see if that gap is consistent or not to determine whether or not these are out the same distance. And that looks pretty damn close. Yeah, I'm going to say that's good. So we're happy with that. Now it's just a matter of screwing these in. Let me go find a couple of screws that I can use to attach this. Yeah, I might as well clamp this together again just to make it easier for me to drill these. Okay. There we have it. Oh shit. You know what? I forgot. I'm putting sandpaper on here, which I should have done already because that's going to make these things even further in. And I do think the sandpaper is important. Hang on. I don't like working in this clutter though. So actually, I'm going to take this one apart. Wow, that was a good fit. Oh, and I need some for the bottoms of these too. Don't let me forget. That's the way to do it. Now we can bring these screws out, or the little pricks out again. That's pretty perfect, I believe. Okay, so that's one. Now let's do the same thing over here. And the reason I'm holding this down against the piece of wood to screw this out is I want to make sure that the screw head doesn't just push this sandpaper up and detach it from this. I want to make sure it goes through. So this is just one way of ensuring that. I mean, these screws are pretty sharp anyway. I doubt it would be an issue, but just to be safe. Okay, we are looking pretty dang good. I just need to put some of this stuff on the bottom. I'm just going to pick the side that I think this is going to stick the best to for absolutely no valid reason whatsoever. One done. Okay, I believe we're done. We'll clean this shit up later. I don't feel like doing it now. Okay, let's give this thing a little test drive. As long as I clamp this down square to this table, then I know that I'm going to be square. Oh yeah, that ain't moving anywhere. This is a piece I'm going to route. Okay, still square. So now if I get this piece and just squish it in nice and comfortable, give this a little love tap, then I can clamp this down. It's not moving. just eyeballing it here. I'm not doing this exact, since I'm just testing out my clamping system. Hopefully this piece doesn't go flying somewhere. I'm going to call that success. Most definitely. Yeah, that's success. I mean, I'm moving the whole thing. So it's in there solid. And again, it does leave little dimples in there. But as long as you can oversize your piece a little bit so that you can cut that off or sand that off, it works brilliant. In fact, I think I could probably loosen these screws out a little bit so that they're not sticking out quite as much. And that way they would leave a bit smaller of a dimple, obviously. But overall, this system works extremely well. And it's easy, quick and easy. I like it. I like it a lot. And I really like the fact that once you get this one side established square, then your piece is already square by default. And these don't move at all. Brilliant. In fact, if you wanted to, another option is you could get a longer clamp and clamp these. Once you've got this one attached to the tabletop, to pull this one in tight, you could actually clamp this way to get it squeezed in tight, then put this clamp on. But again, this is not moving. Yeah, I have complete faith in that not moving. So there you have it. Probably the easiest clamping system you'll ever build. It took me all of, I don't know, I'm going to say an hour and a half, maybe. Pretty straightforward. So it's 3/4 inch plywood, 8 inches by 9 inches, and I used maple on these ends, which is the thickness of the plywood, 3/4 inch by 1 inch. Screwed it in this way. These screws are countersunk, so you can adjust how far out the prick comes. I wondered where that tape measure was. God, I hate being an idiot. I was looking for this friggin' tape measure all morning. And then I finally just grabbed a different one, but kind of like, where's your glasses and they're on your head? Yeah, I've never done that before either. God damn. Ow. Fuck. Careful, that's going to be hot. Dumbass. Jersey. That was rude.